Welcome back to another edition of the Diabetes Remission Roadmap podcast. And hey, if your fasting blood sugar isn't improving and everything else is, there's usually a few specific reasons why. And today we're going to walk through three of the most common ones we see. Brian, welcome. That's what's called a teaser. I was just feeling a little airtime while you hocked a loogie into your cup because you're not feeling 100%.
Thanks for sharing, Corey, the details that everyone just needed to know.
He muted himself at least. He did it before we went hot. So you didn't have to hear the sound of him loogieing it up into his mug. And this is where we're testing how strong the beginning of this episode is. You want to hear those three reasons why, but you got to get through the loogie stuff. And we've gotten through it. Okay, we're done. Brian is a little under the weather. He's got a baseball game to coach tonight, but he's here recording as a public service to you. Thank you, Brian.
You're welcome, Corey.
All right. So one of the most frustrating things that we hear from our patients and our history, the clients we take care of, is as they go through the process of diabetes remission, they're working on building muscle. They're satiety-centric eating, protein, fiber, moving strategically, crushing it, right? And one of the first things we see is an improvement in pre and post-meal blood sugar. Hooray, that's great. We love to see that, Brian.
We do.
We count every win as a win. And so when we see those improve, sometimes the fasting blood sugar doesn't improve. And we hear, what am I doing wrong? And so the first thing we want to do is we want to normalize this for you. So it's pretty common that the fasting is the last to go down, even when the post-meal numbers improve first.
Yeah. Why is that, Corey?
Well,
please enlighten us.
Sure. So the post-meal blood sugar is essentially how you handle incoming glucose. And this is where strategic movement, reducing the amount of incoming glucose that's coming into your body, the extra energy, can help with those post-meal sugars. When you're taking those walks 5 to 10 minutes after meals, you're doing squats a few times a day, air squats, activating those GLUT4 receptors. Go back to the Muscle Masterclass episode with Dr. Ben to hear all about the nerdy part of GLUT4. But essentially, once you activate muscle, you're going to get that blood sugar out of the blood and into your muscle. So you are actively taking care of that. Now, your fasting blood sugar, this is often what your body is producing on its own. Your liver has a process called gluconeogenesis, gluconeogenesis simply means making new glucose. And what's actually happening is, like, at night, you're not eating, or hopefully you're not eating at night. One of the first things we clean up are those late night snacks that some of our clients are used to. And Brian knows me, I'm guilty of some of those evening snacks too. But
me too.
Ideally, you are not snacking overnight, but your body does need glucose to function. So it does make its own glucose. And this typically happens in the liver via the breakdown of glycogen, which is stored glucose, or creation of glucose through gluconeogenesis. So once you have type 2 diabetes, you're at a state where you are insulin resistant, which means the insulin your body produces doesn't send the sugar out of the blood into your cells. Now, also when you're in the state of insulin resistance, your insulin when your insulin's high, it means that sugar's high and we don't need to make more sugar. But in this resistant state, it doesn't always get that liver to stop producing new glucose. So the liver keeps on releasing glucose, even if you don't need it, even if your sugar is already elevated. So your fasting number, although sometimes it can be about what you ate, it's not always about what you ate. It's about what your liver's doing when you're not eating. So this is why we'll have people say, I didn't eat for 10 or 12 hours, but my sugar's still high in the morning.
Yeah, I definitely hear this a lot, Corey. So I like how you explained it in the form of what the liver is doing behind the scenes, and how what I'm hearing is just essentially your liver in a healthy state should be able to see from or hear from insulin that I don't need to produce any more glucose. We have enough, but that's not happening because we have insulin resistance, and that insulin resistance is happening in the liver as well. Am I correct?
Okay. Right. Now, this is one reason why. So the first reason here, as we discussed, is that your liver is overproducing glucose. This is a list of three. Number one, your liver is still overproducing glucose. Now, one of the reasons it could be overproducing glucose, and now this is a sidetrack to the overproduction at night, is that if you're not sleeping well, or in my history, I've taken care of people who have nightmares, those situations where they're up late at night, unable to sleep, or having nightmares, and they have literal, their body is going through stress, your body's producing cortisol, which tells your body to liberate glucose to fight or flight, to run away. Now, of course, if you're laying in bed having a bad dream, you're running in your dream, but you're not actually running anywhere. So your sugar's high. Fun aside, I actually had a dream last night, Brian. You and I were going to go to the sauna, and my friend had a sauna, and he would not let us in the sauna.
Oh,
I need to text my friend today and tell him how angry I am about the fictitious dreams on us he doesn't own in real or fake life that he didn't let me in. Reason one is your liver is still overproducing glucose. Number two, all right, unless you have anything more to add before we move on to number two.
No, it seems like you got this.
All right, yeah. Brian is Sniffly McGee here. He's a trooper. He's tough. Reason two why your fasting glucose is still high is that your stored energy has not cleared yet. So in type 2 diabetes, you are energy toxic, Brian.
Yes. Thank you for letting me get a word in. Yep.
The last time I tried to let you get a word in, you're like, you're good. You did it all. So type 2 diabetes is a state of energy toxicity. There's nowhere for that energy to go. Your body's resistant to the insulin. Okay. As you improve your body composition, improve what's going on, you're going to improve the energy toxicity. But when we start with this, oftentimes our liver is overloaded. Type 2 diabetes often is accompanied by fatty liver. So we have excess fat. We're filled to the gills with glycogen, which is glucose storage. So even as our meals improve, the energy in drops, we still got to get rid of all that backlog in the liver.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's like we talk about this on our webinar of our energy tanks are full. And so you got basically got three different energy tanks. You got your muscle, which is then form of glycogen. You got your fat tissue, which we look at subcutaneous fat, and we got visceral fat. And then you also have
visceral being like around our internal organs, like fatty liver.
So subcutaneous fat, everybody varies in their difference amount of how much subcutaneous fat they can store. So when you have more subcutaneous fat storage, you don't have to then put around your liver or your organs as much. So the less fat around your organs, the better in this case. So yeah, there's just an energy toxic state, way too much energy. And that's why we work on reducing that energy consumption over time and putting yourself in a negative balance.
Yeah. So we have our muscle glycogen, which is stored glucose. We have our fat, which is broken into subcutaneous and visceral. And then we have our liver glycogen as well, which is where we store glycogen. Glucose in the liver is stored as glycogen. And so even though you're improving your post meals and you're doing the things to reduce the sugars after meals overnight, your liver is still energy toxic. And even though you've improved the inputs, that system, those storage tanks, especially in the liver, is still full. Think of if you have a full gas tank and there's still more energy coming in, because you are consuming energy, we still have to drain that tank. And until you do, you're going to have extra coming out. And so I want to pause here, Brian, and because this is a point where a lot of people will quit. They'll be doing the workouts, they'll be changing their meals, they'll see the post meals drop, they'll see the pre meals drop, but the fastings won't budge. And they just assume I'm never going to improve. I give up. And so this is a little reframe. It doesn't mean it's not working. It means it's working. You're just not done yet. And the reality is, in our experience, the longer you have had type 2 diabetes, the longer you've been dealing with insulin resistance, it takes longer to drain this internal liver storage tank. And it takes longer to get over those high fasting numbers, which could mean it could take longer to see those fastings drop, and you might need medication longer. Now, our goal here, it's the remission roadmap, is to get you on less or no medicines with a controlled blood sugar. Everyone's going to vary in how long it takes.
So less medications, Corey. Would you then categorize supplements as that? Because I know I've been asked by people, I've even seen diabetes educators online who just tout berberine as this magic supplement that is for fasting blood sugar levels. So should people just take that?
If you saw it on the internet from a random influencer, you absolutely should just listen to this person. Right? I guess my thought is, if you're taking a medicine, and really the one I see this a lot with is metformin. When we reduce metformin reduces gluconeogenesis in the liver. When we reduce it, we'll see a bump in fasting sugars. Now, berberine can replace that. In my opinion, you're still taking a substance to lower your sugar. It doesn't mean you're a failure. It means one's a prescription item and one's an over-the-counter item. And I think people sometimes fall in love with supplements because they want to stick it to big pharma. And listen to me, like, we're on this podcast because we want people to be less reliant on pharma. However, do know that there is big supplement. And in our experience, I'll speak for Brian. I'm sure you've seen someone walk in with a gym bag full of supplements, and they're just like, I'm never going to take a medicine. And then they put five pounds worth of supplements on the counter. It costs them $500 a month, and you're defeating the purpose. So we cannot give medical advice, Brian. We have a disclaimer at the end of this episode, of every episode. If berberine is something you take and you like it and tolerate it better than a prescription medicine for blood sugar, and it helps with these fastings along the way, working with your provider, then great. we're not going to say, we're not going to put an asterisk by your improvement. If for many people, tolerating a drug like metformin is really hard, but if they can take berberine and have similar results, great. We don't get kickbacks from pharma, as you can imagine. And I think it also would matter, Brian, like how high are those fasting numbers?
Yeah, I agree. Is it worth just trying to make a number look good by taking a supplement? Or should you play the patient game and just go the slow and easy route of sticking with the big things that work, which we know are strengthening, so you can increase your muscle sensitivity to glucose. It is satiety-led eating, so you can reduce your total energy toxicity over time, aka lose fat. And it is sleep and stress reduction, so that you're optimizing your cut recovery and you're just putting your body in a good state where it can heal. I think
Yeah.
those are the three. Would you add anything to that three?
I think that smart movement as well.
Smart.
Like part of reducing that excess energy. Now, like the rote advice has always been eat less, move more. I think move more. Generally, most people could benefit by moving more. Now, doing this strategically around meals, which is why if you take that 10-minute walk after a meal, hey, my post-meal blood sugars are doing much better. Great, you're utilizing that glucose. But if you're sitting around the rest of the day, then we're not hitting, and you're still seeing those high fasting numbers. It means that we need more total energy use. We oversimplify it by saying energy tanks, but get that. Typically, it's probably going to be like the liver fat improved so that you're not pumping out the glucose at night.
Yeah.
Very useful little tidbit there on the berberine, Brian. Thank you. You definitely caught me off guard with that.
I only asked because I've just been asked many times, should I take berberine? I'm like, do you like taking metformin? No, it's basically a supplement replacement of metformin.
Yeah.
So you decide what you want to do.
Yeah, totally your choice as long as you're working with a well-trained provider to guide you, and we
Yeah.
are not giving medical advice. All right, I think the people are clamoring for number 3 here. So we're gonna hop right into speaking of overnight, dawn phenomenon. And Brian, would you be so kind as to explain the dawn phenomenon? And I'm
Yeah,
not
so-
talking about when the soap really cleans your dishes good. Not that dawn.
Huh. Shout out to Dawn. The dawn phenomenon, essentially, as it says in the name, happens in the morning, and your body is essentially preparing for the day. You get what's called the cortisol awakening response. And so your body starts to naturally release cortisol like it should to help wake you up, get you ready, moving. In our ancestral days, go hunt and find and gather food. However, in these days, it's probably more drink some coffee, get the kids ready for school, pack their food, stress out about what they're getting at school, all these things. And so
Get their shoes on.
yeah, get their shoes on, find
right
their
feet.
book, all that stuff. So it's preparing for the day. The cortisol is our fight or flight hormone. And so you essentially, like Corey said before, cortisol signals the body to release glucose, and which is that immediate form of energy that our body can use. And so that's what the dawn phenomenon is. You get
Yeah. And when you're not insulin resistant, you have a little spike in sugar and your body accounts for it and you don't have a high sugar, or an overly high sugar. But again, when you're insulin resistant, any rise in sugar, glucose is going to be a challenge for your body to dispose of. So your body's basically trying to wake you up and get you ready for the day. It just, you maybe overshoot. So it's a part of normal physiology that is not correctly managed by the body in the state that it's in.
Yeah, and this is where I'll say that I think we talked about this in an earlier episode too about fasting and how you actually might see an increase even if you're fasting, you're not eating, you're like, I'm gonna skip breakfast, but my blood sugar keeps going up. It's because you have not lowered your cortisol by taking in food and calories. So some of the right food and not medication, some of the right food can signal the right hormones to suppress cortisol release. Whereas if you're taking a bunch of carbs, then you're basically just going to give your body a bunch of extra sugar and it's going to spike your blood sugar up. But if you are taking in protein and nutrients, you are going to signal to your body, hey, like we're fed. Now we can start to back off on that cortisol response. And you may even see a decrease in blood sugar, not just because your body is starting to taper down on the cortisol release.
So what we're trying to get at here is that even if your fastings are still high, if your other numbers have improved, it just means you're earlier in the process. Because as you make stronger food choices, utilize that muscle, you get a little bit better insulin sensitivity, you're going to get better post-meal numbers. And then the fasting, because of the way your body produces glucose, the way it still responds to it overnight, it's just going to take longer. And so you're not failing. You just have to continue the process. And so your post-meal numbers will say, hey, this is what I'm doing today. Okay. And I'm doing well. fasting numbers might be what the body's still working through. Even if your post meals are improving and your fastings remain the same, consider it progress. And I think Brian mentioned the three places we store energy, the visceral fat. And this is, I'll tie this into weight because people do care about the number on the scale, is that as you start through the process, the first, and we see this quite a bit, the first 4 to 8 weeks, you might not see the number budge on the scale a ton. However, if you notice an improvement in your waist circumference, that means your body's getting rid of the dangerous visceral fat and you're gaining muscle. So we love seeing a lower number on the scale if you're overweight. I totally feel you on that. However, your body's number one priority is to get rid of dangerous fat. So that's what it's doing there. I'm out of words here, Brian.
Well, if I say, when people tell me like they're trying to lose weight, and I just pause there and I say, hold on, we don't just want to lose weight. We want to lose fat, specifically visceral fat. So that's when you just look at the number on the scale and you focus on that, you're not getting the full picture of how you're recompositioning your body. Whereas it matters more if you are starting to notice your clothes fitting better around your waist than you are, but the scale stays the same. I saw an image the other day of probably ChatGPT generated, but essentially 140-pound woman looking one way with one body composition, another way, and in 3 different ways. And she weighed 140 pounds across the board, but one was like very muscular, one was like semi-muscular, and one was like mostly
body fat.
Body fat, yeah.
Yeah.
Just weight stuff, full picture.
Right. So it's body composition. And so I think that what I have experienced as working as a clinical pharmacist, working as a diabetes coach, is having someone in your corner to remind you and guide you along the way so that when you come up against these roadblocks, you don't feel like you're failing. And it reminds me specifically of someone I took care of in my clinical pharmacy practice. And it was a good 6 to 8 weeks of seeing numbers not budging as much as they wanted, seeing weight not budging as much as they wanted, but I'm more energetic and my clothes fit better. I'm like, stick with it, stick with it. And then it was like the good kind of fall off a cliff where it was like magic. All of a sudden the numbers were better, the weight was down. So stay with it. If you're seeing other signs like the non-scale victories, the non-fasting sugar victories, stick with it because it means you're on the right path.
Yeah, I think it's a great way to end it.
All right. So we hope you enjoyed the reasons why your fasting numbers are still high, even if your post meals are improving. If you've experienced this or want to share your story, send us a message on Instagram, send us an email. We love reading those. But until the next episode, keep it simple and do what works.